And welcome everyone to the Shitlord Preachers podcast. This is episode 28. Now, for the second episode, presented by Think Liberty. Think Liberty has become our new part of a network that we're a part of now. You can check them out at think-liberty.com, as well as check out this podcast and many other podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, and pretty much all the platforms that are connected through Sprecher. You guys probably heard about this last week. We've just recently joined Think Liberty. But my name is Amos Joseph. I'm joined by my friend Brook Potter, who is in the UK. Good morning to everyone. Good afternoon, and I guess good evening as well for those who will be joining us later and listening to this on iTunes and other podcasting platforms. The Shitlord Preachers basically were my friend Brooke and I, who used to be preachers, recently turned shitlords, have our discussions that we used to see, basically mirroring a lot of the things we saw in ministry and religion, we started to see in politics, and we started this podcast to have our discussions. How's it going, Brooke?
It's going well, Amos. It's always good to be back on the podcast and talking with our fellow people. Have we been permanently banned from like the podcast world from our last episode, or you've been given
No.
permission to continue?
From what I've seen, we've got like our usual early beginnings. We've got some listeners. We've got a couple people listening. Definitely the channel has definitely gotten a couple subscribers, so that's
Excellent.
always a good thing. Definitely, I mean, there's only a couple, but got to start somewhere. So
Got to start somewhere. That's right.
we're definitely getting there. We'll also be looking at some equipment changes over the next few podcasts as we're moving into the podcasting realm. We definitely want to give you guys better audio quality. The guys over at Think Liberty have done a good job to clean up a lot of this stuff when I send them the files, but we're going to go further to upgrade the microphone. If you guys see in the live stream, I have a microphone. Brooks got
I got some
microphone.
AirPods.
Yeah.
I'm presently in my office, right? So I don't have the studio set up. So those who are watching and those who are listening, I'm in my office at the moment. Yeah, it's pretty sound proof to an extent. But I can't lug a whole bunch of equipment out here because it's just not the place for that.
If we get the one microphone, I think we'd be good.
Yeah, I'll look into it. If they send me the list, I'll take a look at it. Or if any of our listeners wants to sponsor us some microphones, that'd be pretty epic.
Ooh, well, yeah. Well, send us a microphone and we'll plug it every episode.
There we go.
Oh, cool. Plugging a microphone's no big deal. But yeah, today we're going to be getting into a couple different things. We had a bit of a discussion just before we started the stream today. For those of you on the podcast platforms, this is a live stream, so definitely check us out, Shitlord Preachers on YouTube. It's just the title, so the name of my channel being Amos Joseph. But yeah, we had a bit of a discussion before we started today on a couple of things, the topics we wanted to go over. I know Brooke brought up a couple things, so we kind of try to bring together the topics we go over between what's going on in the U.S. and what's going on in the UK/Europe, the shit show that is Europe. And any other topics that we might be going over as well, whether it's philosophical, cultural, or social issues that also we want to talk about. Pretty laid back, pretty discussion and just chit chat oriented, but it's a good time.
Are we going to start recommending people drink while listening to the show?
The people, I mean, we are libertarians, so people can do whatever the heck they want. While if they want to listen, if they want to go the Rogan route and get on some mushrooms or weed while they're listening to this, if you want to go the more high class conservative route, have a little bit of whiskey with a cigar, definitely could do that.
Oh, that's a Limbaugh thing.
Yeah. Or if you want to go down the more liberal route, kick a couple trash cans,
set them on fire.
Set them on fire. Break into a few I'm sorry. Smoke weed. totally peaceful. They just hate fascists. That's all.
Poor NPCs.
oh, I actually saw something today, really interesting. Someone actually found a Twitter account that was where there was a software engineer for multiple some projects you've probably heard of. I think like a software engineer for Tor and stuff like that on Twitter with her like real face, real name, saying it's time to shoot fascists.
Wow.
Like they said, no, no, you're, what do you guys think this is? Like, you're not going to have a clean genocide. Why are you guys trying to make it clean? Just kill them all. I'm like, all right.
Wow. And
But
did it have a blue check mark? That, of course, is the
no,
true
no, no,
test.
no blue check mark. But I mean, it's
Interesting.
funny. People like that, they stay on Twitter, but then plenty of our friends get 30-day bans, suspensions. Um, Speaking of next week, we'll actually be having a guest on who has been banned from Twitter, I think, 2 or 3 times for some of the most stupid things you could get banned for. We'll be getting into that next week, though. Um,
Excellent.
but yeah, Brooke, you were bringing up a couple of interesting things that was going. Oh, real quick, what was it? So last week, you remember we talked about the trans, uh, or as I call it,
Psycho.
Professor Dickless Biker.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's what we're gonna call him. We don't care. Crap! I sent that to you. Basically, let me just look it up quick. I sent to you the screenshot. What was it? Oh, here we go. Dr. Rachel McKinnon basically said Joseph Goebbels,
Goebbels.
Goebbels, that's right.
Yeah.
The Nazi propaganda minister looking at Jesse Owens, and he says, quite openly, I think it's unfair to have people like Jesse Owens competing because you might as well have deer or gazelle on your team. So this is referring back to during, what was it, the Olympics that were held in Munich, um, where Jesse Owens, a African American athlete, was competing in, I think, like some of the track and field meets, right?
I'm not too familiar with the events, but
I
sure,
think I
more
remember. Yeah,
stories.
yeah. He was like in track and stuff, and you know, we tend to know that black people run real fast, and they tend to be some of the top medal earners in certain sprinting, medium, and long distance running. Um, it's just a thing, If anyone wants to think that's racist, it's just a fact. You can look at all that, but basically, yeah, Goebbels is saying that about it. And if you guys remember last week, Rachel McKinnon basically won. What was it, some sort of world championship bicycling event as a
Women's cycling.
as a trans woman. Hence the term, the nickname Dr. Dickless Biker. Sorry, Professor Dickless Biker. Um, so he, she, her, yeah, she is now comparing the concerns of athletic performances
For women.
for women, basically, specifically in the women's domain, that are being dominated by trans women, basically X men. Um, yeah, they're like X Men. They're just way too powerful. Uh, to the criticisms to the criticisms that Goebbels had about black people having an advantage in certain sports, which is nonsense.
It's insanity.
Like, natural talents in certain groups of people tend to exist,
Sure.
and for a variety of reasons, it's just evolution. That's nothing you're just going to change. Now, cutting your dick off and taking a few estrogen pills to make yourself feel a little more feminine, throw in a wig, and start biking against women,
Is a
you know,
choice, first of
is
all.
is 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 manipulating. And if anything, I mean, what was it? I mean, you've heard about like guys who take steroids, obviously, and guys who will
Sure.
take what is it? Something horse related, some sort of like hormones they give to like racehorses or something. I don't even remember. I've heard of
Right.
all sorts of crazy stuff. You can take certain hormones as men to because testosterone can only go so high before it's
Right.
changed. Start taking other things to
Supplements, yeah.
yeah
Enhance
yeah
performance.
enhance yeah, and that's been like heavily scrutinized and even banned in a lot of sports.
I mean,
But
it's a tough call. Do you think? No, I fully agree with you on this the trans issue. In fact, there was a very good article that just came out. Um, I think it was in one of those kind of women's magazines, basically saying that the trans ideology is going to be terrible for women, and I think we kind of
yeah,
agree on
yeah,
that women
yeah,
are at a disadvantage, definitely. But I mean, going back to Professor Dickless cyclist, comparing Gerber, I think he was a German Nazi, and he, of course, the Aryan, as we know the history of it, they believe the Aryan race was superior, and when they started getting outclassed by the African athletes, they basically said, well, these can't be human, these are animals, and that was kind of the thinking.
exactly.
But I mean, touching on your point, I mean, have you ever looked at the Chinese Olympic team? I don't know if you have or haven't,
I
but
mean, I know there was the concerns with their gymnast team,
yes. So
being they were like just they were like too young or just the flexibility that they exhibited was just not normal that you would find
yes,
it in an adult. Like for an adult, for fully grown, 18-plus-year-old adult, to have that flexibility would take more work. Because your joints are not quite as solid as an adult would be. So they had a
correct.
lot of these girls who, from some, very, I guess they had some evidence, or at least some, just it looked really suspicious to say that some of them were probably like way underage, like between 14 and 16 or something.
It definitely looked that way. But the point I was making on this, like, if you ever listen to the coach for the Olympic team of China, they will tell you straight up that genetically the Chinese cannot compete with the Africans in track and field. So they don't even send athletes to try for that. In
Right,
fact,
right.
in only very recent times have we seen some sprinters come out of Japan and South Korea. Up until recently, I think Japan made the FIFA World Cup, which is, of course, soccer, football. So you don't see, just the genetics and stuff like that. The Chinese were more suited to things like diving, gymnastics, and I think there was archery as well, like some of the coordination stuff as well. And the Chinese are
Those
fine with
Mongolian genes.
it's all this, yeah, Genghis Khan, man. He gave him something. Um, but yeah, so I mean, they acknowledge that, and that's why they're not wasting, energy and effort trying to get their guys into these other sports. But of course, if you say that in the West, it's considered racist and all these different types of things. But no, I fully accept that, in terms of performance athletes, yeah, the Africans definitely have the advantage. Usain Bolt, yes, Jamaican, but of African lineage, the fastest man alive. Um, that's just where you see it. And you just, if you look at the Olympics, you will just see that there are just some genetic traits that advantage some races over others.
I
And it's
mean,
not racist. It's just they're different.
even like I joked about this because you and I have known about like the shows like Supergirl and The Flash getting just completely overrun by SJW rhetoric,
Yeah.
and so
Wait till I tell
I
you what's going on with Doctor Who.
well, we're not going to get. I don't want to get too much into that. I just want to
Yeah,
after we
I know.
talk
I'm
about
just
the
saying.
Flash, we got to get into the other topics here. But I just remembered with the Flash. Did you watch much of the Flash
Yeah,
at least
I still
recently?
watch it. Yeah, I still watch it.
Yeah.
I'm actually watching season 5 now.
Oh, that came out. I got to catch up on that then.
Yeah, it's only like 2
Um,
episodes out, but yeah.
it's yeah. I'm not too like in any hurry really. I mean, they're not. I mean, the Flash is not as bad as the Supergirl. Supergirl just went right away.
Yeah, Super Bowl.
Guns,
Yeah.
LGBT,
Immigrants,
immigrants,
aliens.
aliens. Yeah, yeah. So basically, uh, what was it? Oh, so there's a Flash, and then there's Wally West, who's like Kid Flash and all this,
Yeah.
and um, if you remember, like in the storyline, basically like Wally was like increasing in his speed because they kept doing speed tests. They're seeing how are they adjusting to their abilities, and Wally just kept like he was increasing at a speed his performances a lot quicker than Barry Allen ever did. And
Yes.
even at one point in the show, Wally was faster.
Yes. I remember that.
And I couldn't help but think, now how do you reconcile that? He's the faster guy as a black guy, or he's a faster guy because, you know, my diversity. You got to like give the black guy a little bit of an edge because he's a minority. It's like, so how do you do it, without
Yeah,
being
yeah.
racist? I mean,
So,
because they
so you make
literally
them a little
said
faster.
you make him a little faster. You're not making him super fast.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can't say that I remember that, but I definitely I've seen the trend of it. Yeah, it's. I mean, we're not going to get into that whole thing, but it's definitely a continuous trend, especially coming out with these DC and other things, where, as they say, you get woke, you go broke. We're pushing this stuff. I mean, we didn't plan to go down this road, but we're experiencing that in the UK with the new Doctor Who, which happens to be a woman for the first time. She's the 13th Doctor, yeah, 13th or 14th, depending on if you count John Hurt. But it's terrible. Oh my God, it is the most ridiculous, cliche, boring piece of television that I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
And my girlfriend, she's not a Doctor Who fan, and she watched the first one. She thought it was brilliant. I watched the old stuff, and I'm watching the new stuff. And I mean, Matt Smith, that for me was the epitome. It started to go down with Capaldi, which was the guy after that. And now we reach Jodie Whittaker, so it's a lady and stuff like that. And I don't give a shit that it's a lady. It's just there's so much, social justice nonsense that's being shoved down your throat, and it's only been 3 episodes. I mean, I switched off by midway through the second one. It was just ridiculous cliches. Like literally, her first appearance was her crashing through a glass ceiling. I mean,
what?
Yeah, like she shows up on a spoiler alert for anybody who might have seen it. Skip ahead. But her first appearance in the episode, she crashes through a glass ceiling and lands in a train. Like, you can't get oh my goodness, it's just so ridiculous. But anyway, that's a tangent. That's a whole other story.
I was gonna let you get into a couple of things you wanted to bring up. There's some interesting stuff as always in the UK.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, for anybody who knows, about almost 2 years ago, I think there was the referendum put out by the government to do the Brexit vote, which was the initiation of England and, well, the UK leaving the confines of the Soviet Union. I mean, the European Union. And but I mean, over the time, there's a lot of political posturing over this whole issue. Now, for those who don't know, I wasn't here in the UK when that vote was done. I didn't vote. I would have voted to leave, purely on the issues of sovereignty and other things. So again, the nuance of the politics behind it, I don't think our listeners are interested in. What they are interested in is probably how the losing side, very similar to what's happened with Donald Trump in the US and Trump derangement syndrome. The losing side, the Remain side out here, has completely lost their shit, right? They're just totally unhinged. And over the weekend, I don't know when it was exactly, we had what was called the People's Vote, which is ironic because the People's Vote actually happened 2 years ago when we voted to leave, right? But they're trying to disguise this thing as, well, we were misinformed, we're all too stupid to really know what it meant. So we need to have a second vote on whatever plan or whatever deal the government negotiates with the EU. We need to vote yes or no for the deal. And they basically want to put two options. Either we remain or we vote for about, whatever deal our prime minister negotiates for, completely leaving off the table the prospect of what we call a hard Brexit, which is basically crash and burn out of the EU. We end up trading with them on WTO terms, and you sort the rest of the shit out later. Like, nobody really cares, right? Which will be fine. We'll be fine doing that. It's not going to be the horror show that The Guardian and these other slippery publications try to push off on us. So it's just, it's this kind of thing. So there's been a lot of talk about this people's vote, and a lot of people are trying to, a lot of politicians love it because they think it's a way that they could put off the inevitable exit. I think we are supposed to leave the EU. It's March of next year. Maybe I have the date exactly wrong, but
now
we're running out of time, basically.
Right. Now, real quick, so it wasn't called, it's technically the people's vote 2 years ago, but it wasn't called that, though, was it?
No, it was called the Brexit Referendum. And the language that was used by David Cameron, who was the prime minister at the time, was there is not going to be a second vote. This is final. Out means out of everything, which is the customs union, the European Court of Justice, and out of Brussels bureaucracy. It was a hard Brexit or nothing, or we stay in, and we voted to leave in one of the biggest voter turnouts in political history.
Right. Now, because it's funny, and the verbiage I guess they use, the wording they use is so funny. The people's vote, like the People's Republic, like the Democratic Republic, like just anything where you put people in it in the title, is immediately some sort of leftist, As one of my favorite comedians, Norm Macdonald, would say, sounds like some commie gobbledygook.
Yeah. And it really is. What it is an attempt. So, for anybody who wants to find out, you could go to the peoplesvote.co.uk or whatever the fuck it is. And you read it, and they're talking out of two sides of their mouth. On one side, they're saying, yes, we support the referendum. Yes, we support the vote of the people, this, that, and the other. But what we're really asking for is a nuanced approach to the deal. Now, that has nothing to do with anything. They're basically trying to split the vote. Right, so they might even put three options. And if you put three options, they figure they're going to split the vote between the people who want a hard Brexit and what they call a soft Brexit, which is leave the EU and everything except, in name only, but stay in all the other institutions. So they're hoping that we could do that, and then suddenly Remain has the majority and the whole thing falls apart.
The UK was never fully in the EU as it was, though. You still retain your currency.
Yeah. When I can't remember who the PM was at the time. I wasn't alive back then, but I think it was in the 70s when they entered the EU. They entered a trading bloc. They wanted a free trade bloc with Europe, which is fine. We get our German cars cheaper. We get some French wine, some cheeses. It's great. It's great. It's fine. But then it became this political behemoth, right? So now it's the United States of Europe is what they're basically pushing for.
ESSR.
It's the ESSR, yeah, exactly. Right, and there's no accountability. We could go into all the ways it's non-democratic sort of thing. So we didn't have a say the first time. We had a say the second time. We're getting out of this monstrosity. It doesn't end there. As I was telling a guy recently, once we're out of this quagmire of the EU, we're going to start cleaning out the House of Parliament and start enforcing things like a proper constitution, freedom of speech. So we kick the Eurocrats out first, and then we're going to start trying to reinstate, some actual freedoms in this police state that we live in. But to the point of this thing, this whole movement of the people's vote, it's basically, the whiners and the complainers and the people with Trump derangement syndrome crying over an election result they don't like and trying to manipulate the public to get their own way. And as I say, even if we did a people's vote, even if by whatever graces we managed to pull that off, why would we even take that seriously? If you're not going to take the first vote seriously and you want to amend it with a second one, there'll be a third one and a fourth one, and democracy goes out the window.
Then you can't decide on anything, really.
Exactly. So it's quite embarrassing, to see these people going out there.
Still want to live there any longer, Brooke?
I mean, if I could find myself a nice American woman, just kidding, because that's my long-standing joke for years. No, I've seriously considered putting in the application through. I have family that's in the U.S. and I'm eligible for citizenship through them if I decide to do that. And I've been seriously considering it because things are really grim out here.
Yeah, talk about try to help your country while not risking being caught under its, I guess, iron fist at this point, or
the iron boot, Leviathan.
Well, it's not quite iron yet. It's like a lead fist.
Yeah, it's hard enough,
soft.
man.
Still a little soft. Not quite iron,
Yeah. A little bit.
Wasn't there something else you wanted to?
Well, yeah, you were going to bring up stuff about the immigration stuff.
Yeah. So everyone's heard a lot about this migrant or immigrant caravan coming up from the south and here in the States. All I really know about it, I mean, we wanted to bring up this. What is it? There's I think this morning I heard the numbers have grown to about 10,000 people, mostly men, and it's kind of become this whole thing, where Trump is wanting to cut them off, and they're just going to make a run for it, really, towards the border. And for those of you who've seen, the border is not really much of a border nowadays. I mean, even with Bush's, fencing and all this stuff, there's still spots, you see it on the news all the time of these spots you can literally just walk over. But so there's a lot of talk about this. I think Trump this morning basically said all the countries letting them walk through them, letting this caravan come through without stopping them, he's going to withdraw foreign aid.
Quite right.
And some of the libertarians I saw were basically saying, great, now let's take some of those cash savings we're getting now onto the debt. Which is a valid point. I think that out of a lot of the things libertarians are really pushing on is, yes, the debt is definitely an issue. So I thought that was pretty funny. Like, oh yeah, definitely should tackle that. And it's a good move. I mean, I think it's a good move by Trump on that point. But even some people were saying, okay, do we let him in? Do we not let him in? Because we've talked about the big divide between libertarians on borders.
Yeah,
you have your more what's considered probably more. I don't know. And I hate using the term, but you have your libertarians that are more pragmatic,
sure,
maybe believe in more borders, are still important now, at least in the world we live in, and some who are more idealistic that try to go for more of the open borders. And so I kind of say this: let him come in if we will abolish the welfare state. Yeah, come on in if you don't have any. If we're not going to give you anything. I mean,
those are the two things. You need to abolish the welfare state. And some might argue you need to abolish democracy. Because if you let in enough immigrants, they'll vote in a welfare state for themselves. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, there's that too. But yeah, I mean, so what do you do then? What do we do? We keep them at the border and try to stop it somehow. I mean, I think I saw there's some chat groups I'm in that basically said something about the footage we're seeing of them marching is only really a show, I guess. Like they're marching on foot, but then once the cameras are turned off, they hop on trucks.
Possibly. I wouldn't doubt that. I've seen a lot of that kind of staging before.
Yeah. Not that it's like CNN doing a staging or whatever. It's just staging in general.
Poor CNN.
But yeah, they're coming on up, and there's about 10,000 of them so far. I mean, once they go through Mexico, it could be.
I
I
mean,
don't know exactly.
this is the second caravan. There was one before, and I can't remember who put a stop to it. I mean, it was Trump was still in office, but I don't know how it was stopped. But I mean, you raise a good point about the foreign aid, and this is what people don't understand. Foreign aid isn't, you know, everybody says, oh, we're giving money to the poor and whatever. No, no, no. Foreign aid is for political leverage. Exactly what Trump is doing. If you're pulling foreign aid from a country, it's because you're trying to put political leverage on them. And that's why you give money to all these crazy people around the world, right? It's probably not necessary, but they do it. But yeah,
Right,
let's
right.
see what Mexico does.
So I'm looking. Yeah, they're in Mexico now. They just left this morning from one of the towns.
Right.
Um, and there, I mean, you see. Let's see here. Yeah, you're seeing a bit of a big. Obviously, you're seeing the divide between the left and the right, how they're approaching it. The left is a kind of trying to portray them as, you know, the dreamers idea.
Right. They're all doctors, lawyers, and engineers. Okay.
They're all, or not even that. I mean, even just at the very least, they're all trying to come here and just, you know, be contributors, positive contributors of society, and they're just good, hardworking people. And then you see the right really demonizes and said it's just a huge issue. When they're all men and it's kind of a staging thing, you know, with
Yeah.
the trucks and the marching. I mean, it's tough. It's a tough thing to really like nail down to say like, is it, you know, the net positive, the net negative? I mean, we have
So
hardworking.
if you're at the border, what do you do? If you were at the border, policing the border, and let's just say you were in charge, what do you do?
Um, don't let them cross.
Okay, I would agree with you. I'd say there, you know, being a citizen, an American citizen, is a privilege, and being able to go through the process. Like I explained this to you guys early on when I was exploring U.S. citizenship, that the process to become a U.S. citizen is lengthy, it's time consuming and costly, and you really need to, you know, jump through a lot of hoops. And even if you get permanent residency, which is a green card or a visa that allows you to stay, you're not a citizen until 3 or 4 years later when you take your naturalization, and then you have to do an exam, you have to show that you speak English and all this other stuff. So for people who've really gone through that process, my sister has gone through that process. I have other family that's gone through that process. You know, I know friends and stuff like that that have gone through that process. You know people who've gone through that process.
Yeah,
Some of them, it's taken over a year, right?
with my mom,
With your mom. There you
it's
go.
taken. She was only sworn in as a citizen. So she, you know, married my father and came here to the States in 1992.
Right.
She was only sworn in as a citizen in 2014.
Wow.
Granted, we were
Wow.
living in Taiwan during a time in there. You know about that, where I lived some part of my life
Yeah.
there. But she never really, you know, there was something in there where they tried to get her citizenship quicker. Like when my father first met her and got married, he was considering going into the military so it'd speed up her citizenship process.
Sure.
Didn't he? You know, didn't quite work out. So,
Right,
uh,
right. Fair enough.
but yeah, I mean, it wasn't until after he passed away in 2013 that 2014 she gets sworn in. And
Wow.
it was like, what?
So
uh,
that's what,
being
12
married to one.
years? Being 12 years?
2014 to 1992?
Yeah, it's 12 years.
No.
No, it's 22 years, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, my math was off there.
I'm the Asian here.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I asked you.
I was like, I'm only half Asian. I already know that's not right.
Yeah, and this is it, right? Like we know a couple guys that have married American women. You and I know them personally, and for a year they're in the U.S. And for 1 year, they couldn't work because they did not have, in the immigration, it's called an IEA, or Employment Authorization Document. So it's EAD is what it's called. And you get that, and it allows you to work while your thing is being processed, right? Mm-hmm. So before you get your green card, you get this thing called an EAD. And that took a year, right? For a couple of the guys that we know. And it's supposedly, now this is the idea, that if you're in the US, it's supposed to be faster because they kind of see, well, you're already in the country, you're a problem, they got to deal with you. So
you're a problem.
Right? So they need to figure out who you are pretty quick, right? But if you apply from outside the country, apparently, as you know, it could take years. Well, it takes longer. It's a much longer process. But going back to my point, to go through that the right way, the cost, the time, and do all these other kinds of things, and then to have people who just want to, cross the border and get some kind of amnesty and all this other kinds of stuff, it's disrespectful to the immigrants that have done it correctly, in my opinion. What would you say?
Yes. It's very much a privilege now. I am hearing in the back of my mind people that want to go and say, the whole process. Well, what about the people who are born here? Well, that's this whole separate thing. We have laws for different things. I was born in, I was born here in the States. I can pass the citizenship exam. I can't say that for a lot of other people who are my age. But I'm a different kind of person, but that's a whole separate thing. So if anyone's thinking that, that's a whole separate thing. It's very much a privilege. And you really got to look at cultural differences. Just being in this country is very different from other countries. And so if you're going to come here, I would say the difference between, natural born citizens versus people that want to be citizens. Natural born citizens grow up in an environment, and so they adjust accordingly. They are a product of the environment, whereas you're coming in from a completely different environment, and we want to make sure you're good.
Yeah, that you really want this. This is what you want.
Right. That you really know what you're getting into. Because then if you're born here, you're already in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I would agree with that. For me, I didn't want to do it before because of Obamacare, right? It's too expensive and stuff like that. But Trump seems to be kind of sorting that out, and so I agree. And I think you're one of the few countries that still do birthright citizenship, right? Which means if you're born in the U.S., you're instantly a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think that's how it works in the UK. We don't have birthright citizenship. You have to have direct British lineage, right? So, and it has to be a certain class of lineage too.
And so, see, what's interesting is you could say that's more discriminating than our policy.
It is. It is more discriminating than your policy. Now, we have the same kind of thing. We have like a residency card that you could get in the UK. So I have a friend from Trinidad. He came up here and claimed asylum, and he was given his residency card, which is the big loophole in our immigration system out here. Basically, everybody who applies for it gets it. But the whole other story. But so I got my citizenship through my mom, who was British. Now, back in the 60s when she was here, and she met my dad and stuff like that, it was easy. They were kind of giving it away like Tic Tacs. As long as you showed that you've been in the country for like a certain number of years and you paid a certain amount of taxes, you were British. They just gave it to you, right?
Right.
So when I was born, she was British at the time of my birth. So technically, I am British by descent. So I get it because of her. But I can't pass it to my kids. It stops at me because my citizenship is by descent. So if I wanted to give it to my kids, if I want to give it to my kids, I have to naturalize, which is like an £8,000 ceremony in the city of London, and the Lord Mayor comes and basically anoints you and does all this other stuff.
Sadiq.
Then I'm a naturalized citizen. Yeah. Well, I mean, he wouldn't literally show up, but there'll be somebody in the office, and it costs like £9,000 or something like that. Then I'm a naturalized citizen, and I could give it to my kids.
And then they can give it to their kids, right?
And it's now you're now considered like a birthright citizen, correct? So we have 2 levels of citizenship.
Wow.
Apart from residency.
Citizens.
Yeah, like literally that's what's going on.
Citizen.
Right? I mean, I'm a citizen, but I do not have the right to pass the citizen. And this has actually caused a lot of problems out here because a lot of Commonwealth people have come to the UK from like Australia and New Zealand and stuff like that, got their British citizenship by descent, had kids, and then the kids apply for a passport and they're not British citizens, even though they're born here, raised here, and all this other stuff. And it's because they do not understand this is not like the US, it's not like other places. You have to prove your lineage to a natural British person in order to pass it on.
Wow.
It's complicated, man. It's quite a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was still easier than getting my because I've been trying to get to the US for the better part of my life. And from the time I applied for my British citizenship to the time I got my passport was like 4 months, and it cost me like 500 US. It would have cost me a hell of a lot more and a lot longer to do it in the US.
My US passport costed me $200 maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I'm talking the whole process, the naturalization, the ceremony, and the passport was about 500 US. Actually, it's probably about 1,000 if I think, because it was about £800 and stuff. But yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the immigration thing, right? Because I was having this discussion with a mutual friend of ours that's not too far from here. And we were talking about a recent article that came out. I read it today. I don't know if it was in the Daily Mail or one of those newspapers, about even the immigrants in the UK are sick and tired of mass immigration, right? Right. Even the people who came here, like the Windrush generation and other people, from the Commonwealth and stuff like that came here. So this is now like what would be considered our parents' generation who were immigrants. They are sick and tired of the mass immigration that's taking place out here. And they can't wait for Brexit and these other things to take place, because it's just the amount of people that are coming in. It's ruining a lot of these communities. I mean, where I'm staying right now, I'm in as I said, I've moved recently. I'm in a new place. The owner of the place was telling us that not the previous tenant, but probably the tenant before her, was an Eastern European couple. And when she rented them the place or let them the place, they managed to fit 11 other people into the house out from Eastern Europe. And the place that we're living in is very small. It's like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath flat. And they fit 11 people from Eastern Europe in that place. I mean, I couldn't imagine the stink and all this other kinds of stuff. But that's what's going on. And a lot of them were begging, and a lot of them were, there might have been some prostitution going on.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I mean, this kind of stuff is, it's messing with a lot of the community cohesion. And in the article,
you hear about the same thing with, Hispanic immigrants.
Yeah.
A lot of them that, some of them who are maybe first, or I should say not first, but like second or third generation immigrants.
Yeah.
Maybe the first one that came was illegal, but then they got citizenship through being born here and stuff, anchor babies and stuff.
Yeah.
Regardless of, yes, it's a way to get around the rule. But, they're here and they grew up in the environment and they're hardworking people, paying their taxes and so on and so forth, being good little NPC drones. I mean, people. No, they're people too. And they're starting to see like a lot of these illegal immigrants that tend to come nowadays are ruining their communities through, drug trafficking, human trafficking, gang-related incidents that can happen in some of these bordering regions. I mean, you saw if you saw the "Change My Mind" segment by Steven Crowder, where he talked about what was it? Something about illegal immigration. and basically he blurs out faces if people like are really need to. So he blurred out the face of this Hispanic woman, and she like got really close to him, and she like I don't know if you probably saw this. She
I
like
saw it.
blocked
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
she blocked the microphone. She's like, so like who do I call? Because there's like people like in my building that like are doing things, and he goes, oh yeah, just call ICE, and I was just like, what? Whoa, like, and you hear about it like I mean, most minority communities I've come across in general, not only like Asian communities, Native American communities. There's always like the minority within the minority that is outraged about something
Yeah.
that, and then that pushes for some change that the majority didn't really either they didn't give a shit about or they were actually against. Um,
Correct.
uh,
I
I
mean, you
mean,
look at Compton, right? Compton in California, which was like the birthplace of the gangster rap movement. I mean, there was a whole, straight out of Compton, and we've seen all the memes that came out of that.
right.
Compton is now primarily Hispanic, right? So I mean, unless you like mariachi bands, you're not getting rap music coming out of Compton anymore, right? And
Yeah.
the minority black population, which is now a minority black population in Compton, they're actually complaining.
Yeah, I mean, you see also, so where I grew up in here in Minnesota, there was a town nearby who were called the Red Man.
Right.
And it was funny enough. So it was the last apartment that I stayed at. You know about that.
Yeah.
And I was at the grocery store, and I actually saw a bumper sticker that said, the so and so Red Man. It was like some anti like the racism that it somehow perpetuated or whatever.
Right.
I actually knew someone, a family friend of ours who was part Native American, who basically said, you know, yeah, they wanted to change it from the Red Man to something else, but they never asked if we really cared or not.
Right.
Um, the only people you hear about the Washington Redskins outrage is well, white people. You
Liberal white middle class, upper middle class people.
yeah, you really, I mean, even you see, the things with people want to talk about like the Native Americans are sort of fading out. They're not really preserving. I mean, they're all you're really seeing now is a few that are. I mean, so I'm speaking from Minnesota. A few that are running the casinos,
Right.
giving out the profit shares to the I think 1/16 is the smallest Native American you can get. So
Recognized. Yeah.
yeah, that you can get it. Sorry, Elizabeth Warren, you can't get that casino money.
Oh,
Uh,
Pocahontas would be devastated.
and but I hear actually like someone quoted me the statistic and completely call me out if anyone listening thinks this is totally wrong. Most of the Native American population is marries outside of the tribe.
Okay.
They marry white people, other people, so on and so forth. So they essentially, not to get all racial or whatever, they breed themselves out of existence.
Right.
They essentially assimilate and intermarry, like a lot of people do,
Sure.
and that is a huge contributor to just less and less of them being around. And you still got a lot of them,
Sure.
but there's no. If that many people are just marrying other people,
Yeah.
is it real? I mean, are they really? And again, this is nothing against Native Americans, but I mean, are they really that concerned with?
Like preserving the nation sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or are they just assimilating into American culture?
I wouldn't be in a position to comment on that because that
And
is
I wouldn't be.
definitely
I'm just saying, is these numbers are showing, and again, this is just from people I've talked to that have really
But
look into this stuff.
yeah, but what you're saying there, in a sense, is it probably was the tradition to try tribe before whatever. I mean, again, I don't know if we have anybody who could like inform us on this, but I'm sure for probably a number of generations, it was kind of seen as a duty and a responsibility to the tribe and stuff like that. But I mean, just with the decay of Western values, I'm sure that the Native American values have also been somewhat diluted in probably recent generations. And as I say, the younger people, probably my contemporary, your contemporary, and so on, they're not valuing these traditions as many people don't, many young people don't. But I don't know. I mean, they probably don't honor. I don't suppose they have chiefs and stuff like that. They probably have councils. I don't know how it works out there. But just like any group, eventually they break from those traditions, and this is what ends up happening. I'm not saying that interracial marriage is definitely was like a taboo or anything like that, but it might have been seen as some kind of duty to keep the tribe or whatever the case might be, and maybe they just don't value that anymore. I don't know. I'd love to hear somebody tell us about that.
It's just you see these minority communities that are where a majority of them are just, depending on where they are, they either assimilate, they blend in somehow, they contribute to the society they're in. Asians, one of the highest performing people groups in the country, doing better than white people, still can maintain a lot of their culture while still, being like an American, working, making money, making more,
making more money.
making more money.
That is American culture, right? I mean,
sending their kids to college and their kids making more money.
I mean, that is American culture. What is American? And this is why the melting pot thing is kind of true for the US. It's not necessarily true for other countries. But the only thing people care about in the US is making money. They don't really care about anything else, right? I mean, there is American culture, rodeo cowboys, food, country music, and entertainment and stuff like that. Sure, I'll give you
that. Not country music.
Well, that's up for debate then. I'm sure. What is it? Radio City in Tennessee might argue that point, but but yeah, this is the thing that makes America America is money, right? You go to America to make money. That's kind of the thing. And that's why it's worked, because as long as you're productive and you're making money for somebody, nobody cares if you're black, white, Hispanic, blind, and one armed. It doesn't matter. As long as you're productive. It doesn't matter. They don't care. It don't care. And this is what people don't understand. Capitalism is the answer to racism. Like the places that have had the greatest segregation, like India with the caste system. So you got the Brahmins, which were like the high holy men, and it goes all the way down. I can't list all of them. And they had the untouchables, which were the beggars and stuff like that. But now in India, because of capitalism, rise of industrialization and stuff like that, many of the untouchables in the caste system are making millions. And nobody gives a shit anymore because they're providing services and stuff like that, and the destruction of the caste system. Capitalism has done it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was people want to talk Jim Crow and all this, but Jim Crow actually stifled capitalism in those areas.
Yeah.
That you had business owners that were like, it cost me too much money to put up a partition between bathrooms, between eating areas, between drinking fountains, when I could just make one drinking fountain, one set of bathrooms, and one dining room.
Correct. And there were businesses that didn't obey the Jim Crow laws.
And this comes back to the argument I've had with some people about regarding discrimination. The freedom to associate and do business as you please should be preserved.
Agreed.
And over time, you will realize that racism is a bad business practice.
Yeah,
I mean, not regardless of your moral stance on it. Yes, morally, yes, it's definitely wrong. But if people want to be racist, they're going to lose money in the long run.
Correct. I completely agree.
or at least they're going to hit a wall when it comes to expansion. If
yeah, capitalism doesn't well, I mean, it does allow for people to be racist, but as you say, it's to the detriment of the person, right? The only way you make money in a capitalist system is by serving others.
It even messes with I mean, the whole idea of cultural appropriation is a complete joke with that too. I mean, if an Asian guy wants to buy cowboy boots, he can buy cowboy boots.
Correct. I mean, and that actually brings me to the other thing, because I was just reading an article about if you want to dress as a witch, apparently that's like a sign of misogyny, because witches fly around on brooms, and brooms is like a symbol of domestic servitude. But I wanted to bring that up because, I mean, Halloween is coming up. And they were complaining. Like, if you look at the history of it, apparently, right? I'll see if I can find the article, and I'll send you the link if anybody wants to read it. If you look at the history, like the warlocks, which were the male witches, they used to summon a demon horse or some kind of, something that they could ride on. But for some reason, the women were flying around on brooms. And, some feminists, trying to equate 15th century mythology with modern times is, doing the genetic fallacy, saying that dressing as a witch now is considered.
Well, fine then. We'll make it modernized. She'll write a vacuum cleaner, okay?
Well, this is the irony, because when we did modernize it in the Harry Potter universe, even the guys are flying on brooms, right? So, I mean, I don't know if you've seen Harry Potter or not, but
no, I have. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's just, it's kind of funny. Like, J.K. Rowling was woke, but yeah, what was it? Yeah, just give them vacuum cleaners a ride then. I think I've actually seen that before.
I think for some reason that sounds familiar. I can't remember where I've seen that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's like, I mean, everything is cultural appropriation. I mean, if I start wearing like a Star Trek thing, would I be cultural appropriating communists?
Well, half of you.
Yeah. One of these days, like I've told you, I've wanted to look into getting some sort of a costume going on for the show if we ever do something like bigger or something. Just to really, I mean, we had the Kyrgyzstan hat. I still got the flag I got to set up at some point. But
well, so what? I mean, okay. Well, Halloween is coming up in a couple weeks. We call it fancy dress. So you guys say cosplay or dressing up. We in the UK we call it, right? We say you're gonna don a costume. In the UK we call it fancy dress, which was real confusing for me, because fancy dress means black tie, patent leather shoe, formal wear, right? That's what I thought it was, and I was like, I gotta go and get tails, like. So fortunately, my girlfriend caught me before I spent like all that money. She's like, no, it's a costume. It means costume. Out here in the UK, that's what it means. So I'm going to one this Saturday. It'll be my first fancy dress in the UK. I'm not going to give it away. I'm going to save it for the show after, and I will get pictures, and you all will see what I go as. But Halloween coming up. Is it? No, well, I mean, everything's triggering. My face is probably triggering to some people.
You're triggering the follically disadvantaged facial department, like me.
My beard is offensive to the beardless.
Bro. Do you see this? Do you see this?
For anybody who's watching, Amos is rubbing his baby face.
I'm rubbing my nothing. I mean, I have
attempted a Fu Manchu, and
my Fu Manchu, my non-existent Fu Manchu, my lack of hair follicle density
on your face.
I mean, if some sponsor can come along and legitimately prove to me how to grow my beard out, I will sponsor the hell out of them. But we've talked about that too.
Yeah. So my question was, Halloween is coming up.
What am I dressing as?
What are you wearing for Halloween, for the Halloween show?
Are we actually having a Halloween show? What is this? This will be what?
I don't know.
The
Are
20,
we?
the
I don't
20, our
know.
next show would be the 29th, so it's a couple of days before.
Yeah.
Ah,
We
I
could
don't
do
know.
dress up for the show, man. I think.
We
But
probably could.
what?
At
What?
least the upper body. I mean, we don't have to we
Sure.
have to do a full body thing.
I mean, you
Um,
don't even know if I'm wearing pants right now, so.
you don't even know if I'm wearing anything. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Everyone, for the viewers, I put on pants for the show.
So you say.
So I say. You
But
saw
yeah,
me.
what are you going to be wearing for the Halloween show?
I honestly don't know. Now that we bring it up, I really got to think about it.
Something grossly offensive to trigger the NPCs.
I gotta go on Amazon and just find like I mean, I was thinking of like at one point I thought about what if I did like a very generic like astronaut thing and then just say I'm in the Space Force, just
Cool.
but
Why don't you dress up as Chairman Mao?
we've talked about this. The outfit is a bit no. I mean, if I do that, I gotta do it right. I'm not just gonna whip it together. I'm like, that's gonna take me like months of preparation to like make sure everything is fitted properly. I mean, even like the whole wig thing, I'm gonna do all that right.
You seem to have a lot of respect for the chairman. I gotta admire that.
Did I ever tell you you cannot actually refer to him as that?
As what, Chairman Mao?
In Taiwan, you cannot do that. I mean, you
Oh,
can. It's just
yeah,
like it's
taboo.
yeah, it's taboo. Like I remember, like I just, I mean, we would say you would say his name in Chinese. Even saying his name in Chinese, people kind of go, oh, don't talk about him.
What's his name in Chinese?
Well, it's the same Mao Zedong, but we would say like in Chinese it's Mao Zedong, like that's how you would pronounce it
Pronounce it.
properly. Um, Uh, and I told my mom, and my mom was like, "Oh, you're not supposed to really say his name. Like you're supposed to say it's like the he who shall not be named."
We're back to Harry Potter.
Exactly. I mean, you would just say you would literally in Chinese say Mao something something.
Right. Literally
Oh,
Mao something something.
yeah.
That's crazy. And what is
And
the reason for that? Is it like bad juju if you say his name 3 times, he comes and washes your socks or something?
no, no, he makes you horrible kitchenware. That's what he does. No, it's just it's kind of like old superstitions. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, I mean, Taiwanese have a genuine appreciation of how horrible communism is
Right.
versus Americans. I sent you the meme earlier today, the Google search that said, "Who killed 4 times as many people as Hitler, but we never heard about in high school?" And then it said, "Do you mean?" And then the Google search says, "Did you mean Joseph Stalin?"
Right.
Because he's objectively, in terms of people that have been killed, he was worse.
Yeah,
Then if you
Mao
look
was
at
way worse
and
than
Mao was
Stalin.
way worse. Yet you kind of hear about, oh, he's a guy. Um, I think I saw there's a guy I just found on YouTube. I'll have to look him up further. This guy in India, he's I think he's a professor, and he went around with pictures, and he had like a piece of paper with pictures of libertarians. So obviously people don't know much about like libertarian economists or thinkers.
Sure.
And then another picture full of communists.
Right.
Now and he said, do you recognize these people? Well, obviously everyone knows all the commies. That's that Chinese guy, or it's Mao. Or, oh, I don't know any of these people. Of course,
Yeah.
but it goes to show it's like we really just recognize these people, and we don't really know what they were, who they were, what they've done, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I think I remember many years ago, probably back in the 80s, there was a Time magazine survey, and they kind of went around the world asking people if they recognized certain iconic characters. And the most popular character that the world recognized was Ronald McDonald. Not Santa, not Jesus
Oh
Christ,
yeah,
not
yeah, I've heard about that. Ron McDonald's more recognizable than Jesus. That's right.
That's what's going on, man. So, and the reason, I believe, I could be wrong. Maybe somebody can maybe let us know. It's because the media, of course, has blanketed us with these images. You know, I mean, Hitler was Man of the Year on Time magazine once, um, and there's always kind of been, you know, this communist sympathizing, you know, at least up until the Berlin Wall fell. So you'd hear about these things in the media, in the news, in the academic circles. Libertarians were crickets. You didn't hear about Hayek. You didn't hear about Mises and all these other guys. Rothbard. And even though they did tons of work and they've revolutionized economics and libertarianism as a political philosophy, unheard of.
I mean, even in recent times, did you ever hear much about Friedman or even Sowell?
Thomas Sowell.
Yep.
Yeah, Milton Friedman. You don't hear about those things. You don't hear. My exposure to Friedman was on YouTube, right? I'd never heard that in any kind of academic circle and stuff like that. And I watched his series, Free to Choose, which was brilliant. Arnold Schwarzenegger actually did the introduction to that the first time it was showed back in the 70s. And
really?
Friedman was a big influence on his thinking and stuff like that.
Probably,
but yeah, yeah.
So would you say Schwarzenegger was a libertarian at one point?
I wouldn't necessarily say libertarian. He was definitely he was probably like a Reagan Republican, right? Okay. Small free markets, you know, smaller government and that kind of. I think because he ran as a Republican in the governorship for California.
People call him a rhino.
Yeah, because he was actually like Trump. He's just conservative on some things and then he's very liberal on other things, right? So he was definitely. I think he was pro-abortion. I might be wrong on that. Pro-choice. Yeah, I think he was pro-choice, and there were a couple of his policies that probably would have broken him from the party nationally. But yeah, he was definitely in that camp.
Would you have minded having? I mean, regardless of the law, would you rather have had Schwarzenegger or Trump as president?
I think I would have preferred Trump because. Really? Yeah, because you know Schwarzenegger was I liked him as the governor and stuff like that, but
the governor.
The governor. I mean, it was so funny. But there's a bravado that comes from Trump that I did not see Schwarzenegger have as governor of California. So as much as as much as he's big and strong and strapping and all that other stuff, he did not come across as a very strong figure. He actually probably did a lot of appeasement and stuff. I don't think the Republicans had a majority in their legislature, so he probably had to work with the Democrats and give a lot of stuff over and stuff like that. But Trump is a completely different animal, and the fact that he's not afraid to show up at places like NATO or the UN and kind of just stick it to them a little bit, I don't think Schwarzenegger would have ever done that. Trump doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care. I think that's great.
Right. Was there like another thing you were going to bring up?
No, those are the big ones. I mean, you know, we were going to discuss the cultural appropriation thing, and what you know, because I don't think that's really caught on over here in the UK. We don't have the cultural appropriation issue, right? That's a very American thing.
I wonder if it's because because of the melting pot thing. Because I mean, so think of it this way. So, I mean, just how we interpret our history. I mean, for example, the whole Native American thing. That's on a bigger picture compared to the UK. It's pretty recent. The whole thing with the Native Americans.
I mean, since the 1700s, but yeah, okay.
No, I'm saying on the bigger picture, like a huge. I mean, America is still a very young country compared to the rest of the world.
Agreed.
So a lot of our history is still just how society sees things. I mean, yeah, a couple hundred years is still a couple hundred years, but it's the way we go about it. I mean, with you guys, you have a very old culture
Yes.
that I think I wonder if it's just you guys are just more
I think
secure.
what ends up happening, right? Because you're right, it's a very old culture, right? The startings of England and stuff like that go back to 1066. So it's nearly 1,000 years old. I mean, then we had the Act of Union with Scotland and other things. I mean, it's a very long and complicated thing. But you see, the British have never had an issue about sharing culture, right? We called it colonialism. Maybe you've heard of it. So they've actually gone out.
Genocide.
The Brits have always had a very open mind about sharing culture.
Yeah, they just took them.
Yeah, 1/5 of the world kind of thing, right? And I mean, so I think it's now in reverse, which is why, they're kind of open to cultural exchange because of that mindset. I'm not saying colonialism is a mindset, but
so kind of like a reverse guilt.
Some of that is white guilt. Some of that, I don't think it's as big out here as some people think. Because the average man, colonialism wasn't good for the UK either. It was on the back of the taxpayers and stuff. It wasn't great for like the everyday Englishman, a Scotsman, or Welshman and stuff like that, or Northern Irish. So I mean, they weren't great on that respect. So colonialism was the political arm of trying to civilize the world and the mandate, going into all the world and give them the King James Bible sort of thing. But yeah, they've always been aware of culture, and they've been exposed to it for hundreds of years, if not thousands. So when it started to show up here, when different foods started to show up and all these different kinds of things, they kind of embraced it. As a very famous song out here for the World Cup for the English team was a song called Vindaloo, which is an Indian curry. It's a very hot curry. Is a Vindaloo curry. But the Brits just adopted it, like, yeah, we're taking this, right? This is ours now, and this is going to represent the English team in the World Cup. So I think for the Brits, for some reason, they've always been pretty, chill when it comes to sharing culture globally. They've always taken the best, sometimes women, sometimes gold, sometimes cultures. And they've left a lot of that around the world as well. And so cultural appropriation is not a thing here.
But here, it's everywhere.
Oh my God. I mean, you remember that video by Black Pigeon Speaks about the BuzzFeed article in Japan criticizing what was the act, one of those pencil thin models for wearing like the kimono. You don't remember that?
Don't remember us going over that one.
All right, but yeah, it may have happened a while ago. But BuzzFeed Japan, which is basically more ass cancer from the enormous ass cancer that's in the US, was trying to explain to the Japanese people why this model wearing the kimono and being shot in like Japanese style and with like a sumo wrestler and stuff like that, why that was inappropriate. To which the Japanese
like, what?
Yeah, and the Japanese didn't get it. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? She presented it well. She presented the Japanese culture well. She looked good. What's the problem? That she's not, as we say, flattery is the most sincerest form. No, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. That's it. Yeah. So if somebody is adopting the culture, that's a good thing. And if it's done well, I mean, you can mock it, right? We've been mocking Nazis and other things for years, and in comedy and stuff like that. But yeah, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and she did it well. But for some reason, the left in the US has an issue with this, and I've never understood it.
Yeah, it's we took white guilt and went the wrong way with it.
What would be really cool for you, or maybe you could post this in the R Happer communication, right? Your costume has to be half Chairman Mao and half Adolf Hitler.
Oh God. That will be
That would be trolling on a level unseen.
Half a mustache.
Half a mustache. Half the wig. For those who are listening, the joke on this is
armband on one, no, and then gray, like boring gray on the other arm.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Amos is half Asian and half white, so that's the joke. For people who are listening, they may not
Everyone's
get
like losing their mind. What is Amos doing here? No, I am half Chinese and half. On my white side, I'm actually Polish. So, but the closest thing would be to trigger is obviously to do like a Hitler thing or something.
Yeah, and your two sides are fighting with each other.
I mean, if I ever get into any sort of comedy, I'm taking this bit all the way. Is I wake up every morning wondering, if I'm going to oppress myself into building a railroad.
I think maybe some year I will contribute towards that costume. That would be absolutely triggering on a level. You might break the internet with that one.
The Hapa costume.
The Hapa costume. So you could have half cowboy, half railroad worker, in the qigong suit,
Oh yeah, I'll get that, and I'll really have to like cut a cowboy hat in half.
Yeah.
I'll mold it with like the Chinese, like just the cap.
Yeah, exactly. You could really, that would be pretty epic.
Get like a fake pistol holster on one side.
And a hammer on the other.
And then like a hammer on the other. So I'm holding a pickaxe on one hand and I've got the pistol on the other.
Do it, man. Do it. If I did that, that would be offensive.
If I did it, it wouldn't be offensive, right?
No, it'll be culturally appropriate.
Exactly.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. I mean, people have gotten into a lot of trouble with this Halloween costume thing. Like even out here, Prince Harry, which is one of the royals, he dressed up as a Nazi for one Halloween, and he went out. And I mean, this is a while ago before the ass cancer, brain syphilis of SJWs was taking grip. Even J.K. Rowling, of whom seems to be getting quite a lot of plugs in this podcast, she admitted in a magazine that she used to like to dress up as an SS agent because she feels powerful and sexy and all that kind of stuff, in the bedroom and all that kind of stuff.
What's going on here?
So yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, my girlfriend is going as something sexy, of course, because she does have a great body, so she's working on it. And I was thinking, as my costume, I was gonna go as a wall. Ooh. And I'd keep following her and be like, okay, Holly, time to run into me. It's all downhill from here.
We have some people that we follow. You could send that to them, like
hot girlfriend, the wall, and we'll just walk around in pants.
Right. I was thinking. You
gotta explain the joke, though.
Okay, so for those of you who do not know, we're talking about the wall. We're not talking about Trump's wall. We're talking about the sort of the not meta. What is it? The physical aging wall that a lot of red pill men tend to use as a term to describe sort of the point where a woman's sort of youthful prime starts to decline.
Yeah.
So usually,
and for men too. Men hit the wall as well.
There is a wall for men as well. You usually hear about mainly talking about women because it tends to come earlier on. The youthful appearance a woman tends to hit the wall. I don't know. Would you say like early 30s?
Yeah. 30 tends to be an average, but you could put it off by good exercise and other things and stuff.
Yeah. You can. It's basically where your high metabolism, youthful appearance, tough. I would say like taut, like skin, facials, just your body looking youthful and stuff tends to start to decline, not drop off,
Although some do drop off.
Some can, yeah, some can. I mean, they reach a point, through a combination of diet and exercise that goes down.
And lifestyle, yeah.
Yeah, you don't take care of yourself. The wall hit you. So people talk about hitting the wall hard, and anyone can look at this. If you look at just any young any actresses that you used to have a crush on in the '90s, you look at them now, just dead. I mean, very
hit the wall.
Yeah, they hit the wall. I mean, there's only a handful of them that really like maintain, keep going. I mean, for example, like some would say Lindsay Lohan hit the wall a few times.
Yeah. Jessica Simpson. I don't know if you've seen Jessica Simpson.
Yeah.
She was gorgeous when she was younger, and
she still has that.
Now she looks like
she got really fat.
Yeah, it looks like she's eating the television. It's and that's an example of hitting the wall, right?
Right. I mean, some actually just go downhill with like not just the fat, but like their face. A lot of things, they just don't take care of anything. So with her, like, she's still putting on some makeup. She's still like, you can see she was good looking at one point. Some of them, what happened?
Yeah,
like you really wonder what happened. So anyway, yeah, Brooke is going to be the wall. His girlfriend's going to be a hot girl, constantly running into it. Yeah.
Yeah, or the wall is chasing her and she's running, kind of thing. I think that'll be a great costume. She'd hate me forever, though.
Exactly.
So who was your girl crush when you were younger? I mean,
I'm really trying to think about this. I mean, I guess high school and like middle school.
Yeah.
To be totally honest, probably was like, because she was like my age that I had the crush on. A friend of mine and I, we had a crush on her, Miley Cyrus, actually, before she went.
Miley Cyrus, before she discovered cocaine.
Exactly. I mean, she's come back around, but I mean, something's got to be used up at that point.
Yeah. I mean, the one that I still have an affinity for, but she's definitely, in the wall territory, was Denise Richards.
Well, yeah, she was your desktop background, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was my desktop background. Anybody knows this is a girl from Starship Troopers, Wild Things. She was a Bond girl in her prime, and now she's just remarried, and she's just in another movie, I think. But you can see that it's getting on there. It's getting
Celebrities will use their diet and exercise and probably some surgery and a lot of makeup to really offset the effects of the wall, but it's still going to creep in there. I mean, there's even jokes about like people don't say it, but there's the joke about the wall with Chinese women. You know about this, Brooke? It's like looking like she's 30, looking like she's 20. She's 40, looking like she's 20. She's 50, looks like she's 80. What?
Yeah. She like descends into the small dragon lady. She like shrinks down.
I've yet to see that with my mother. We'll see.
Well, I think I've never met your mom. I don't actually know what she looks like, but that's good. It's good. The Asians do age pretty well. There's a lot of anti-aging, like, genes in the genetics.
Right.
Yeah. So you should be looking good for a while, man. You'll be all right. At least half of you. Let's hope it's the top half.
Was there anything else we wanted to go over quick?
I mean, those were the big ones for me. Did you have anything else?
No, we're kind of coming a bit on the time. We've got about 5, maybe 10 minutes if we wanted to. Did you want to talk about that thing we were gonna squeeze in at the end there?
I don't know if we could cover it in this time. Amos is talking about an issue concerning rights.
Ooh, rights.
And we had a very heated, well, not heated, but we had a couple of lively discussions, him and I, with other people as well, on the subject.
So last week we talked about the trans rights and
Hmm.
started talking. Then we mentioned the term natural rights because we have. I mean, we ourselves have a Christian background, so we kind of you know we would associate more with like the God given rights. But for the sake of others, we would introduce use the term natural rights, talking about like how do you approach rights through what an individual is allowed to do, um, given in nature, speak, defend himself, associate freely with others, trade freely with others. So it's sort of it's through in a position of from the angle of anarchy of just no system. What are we capable and should be? Those should be our rights. Kind of ties into the non-aggressive principle, stuff like that, and but we didn't go into that detail that I just mentioned there. We just kind of mentioned rights, natural rights, kind of God given. And I said, self evident in the wording for that in the Declaration of Independence is kind of like a duh, these are your rights. And once I brought that up, some of the guys at Think Liberty referred me to their natural rights discussion that they had on their podcast. I think it's like episode 42 that they did. They're in episode 47 right now. So I listened to that and got to hear a lot of criticism of the idea of natural rights. Sort of the difference, like, well, you can shout natural rights all day, but if you're in communist China and you're about to be sent off to a re-education camp, you know, and you just say, well, my natural rights, they're going to be like, yeah, whatever, send you to the camp. And and I get where that's coming from, but my issue with that is there are rights that are fundamental to humans that not everyone is going to honor. We talked about Brooke. You brought up like getting rights taken away, and I said, well, no, like you don't
Violation of rights.
violation of rights is not the same as taken away. Then there was the difference between ability versus rights. I have the right to free speech. Well, because I have the ability of free speech, but do I have the right? And so definitions and wording kind of gets a lot of people like right to health care. The left is likening that to a sort of access and ability. So I said ability. Well, like, can you afford health care? Because if you can't afford it, by the definition of a right being the same synonymous with an ability, you don't have that right. But as a right being something you have access or can pursue, yes, you have the right to health care. You get what I'm saying,
Sure.
Brooke?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have the
like
right to access the healthcare. Yeah, you don't have a right to the healthcare, but you're
yeah,
permitted to, get what you
your
can.
right doesn't grant you the ability to get that through the right.
Correct.
You
Yeah.
get that on your own still.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You're allowed to pursue whatever makes you happy, and being healthy is part of that. But you're not entitled to the happiness, right? Which is
right. You're
yeah,
entitled to the pursuit of it. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, so that's kind of where we're going with that. And okay, well, there's the natural rights that like someone like Brooke or myself might be talking about would be coming from maybe a more Judeo-Christian standpoint of natural rights, which is including free will, freedom of association, stuff like that. But then how would you like compare that to the natural rights of maybe a Muslim person? Or maybe even natural rights from someone who's coming from a Buddhist or Hindu standpoint? Or I guess would there be some sort of I don't know if there is, would there be like a natural rights stance from a more atheistic point? And there would be some differences possibly. And
Yeah,
how do you
it's a tough topic because I had an NPC on my Facebook wall, basically trying to convince me that there was no such thing as natural rights because he only believed that rights were rights if nobody could take them away. And I mean, by that definition, nothing is a right because there is not anything that, your
and
right to life. Yeah.
that's where we talked about taking away versus violating it.
Right. So
Like,
I said that you can have your rights violated. That doesn't mean that you don't have the right. Right. So, I mean, this argument, basically, you could boil it down to property rights. Okay. For instance, if somebody could steal your property, Thereby, it's not really theft because you didn't have the right to possess it by that thinking, right? Because that right can be taken away from you, your possession, your property rights can be taken. Your
Right.
property.
And I've even heard, libertarians, actual libertarians,
Yeah.
saying that taxation is probably not theft. Because because the right of property and money and all these things are instituted by the state. Therefore, without the state, these things wouldn't exist. So it's not really theft.
Yeah, I've heard that argument as well. No, just because the state sanctions it doesn't mean that it's, not a violation of rights or even immoral, right? So
it's kind of like a contract. Like you and I can sign a contract together, and we honor it.
Yeah.
But people don't really take that, so they want they want the Better Business Bureau to honor it too.
Yeah.
Sort of back it. They want, when I go to a bank and I give them my money and they say we will honor it, and I'll say, well, sure, but you guys also have the FDIC,
right, which is the Federal Deposit Insurance company.
You have the FDIC backing it too. Oh, okay, so I trust you even more, but
up to a certain amount.
Yeah, so don't be a millionaire. Or split everything up in $250,000 increments.
No, I mean, the issue again, if you believe in property rights, and I don't think I've never heard a libertarian say they don't believe in property rights, right? Because then they'd be a communist, right? The crux of Marx's argument is against property rights. But if you're saying that the only rights you have is what's granted by the state, and what can't be taken away from you, then you can't believe in property rights because anything could be stolen, and the state could take anything. Your home isn't even really your home, and you know this. If anybody in the U.S. doesn't pay their property taxes, your home is gone, right? They're going to seize your home. But I mean, it's a much bigger discussion. I don't know if we probably save that. Maybe get some of the guys on. We could have like a roundtable discussion. That might be an interesting podcast.
Right. No, I get. Yeah, we could have it again. Like they actually had the joke. They said, "Oh, Amos is talking about rights on the Shitlord preachers," and they said, "Oh, so then we had the whole discussion." So yeah, we did a whole thing, and we were talking about it more in the chat. And they said, maybe. I said, "Hey, maybe we should talk about this more." And they go, "Maybe we should do a podcast about it." Like they just did it. And I'm like, yeah. So, and then it's cool because we actually had the discussion about it, and they're really cool about like the fact that not all libertarians agree on things. I posted an NPC libertarian meme. I don't know if I showed you that.
Which one? Taxation is theft.
Taxation is theft. End the Fed. Am I being detained?
Right, I saw that. Yeah.
I posted that, and some people were kind of like, "That's pretty good," but then like a couple people were like, it was a very dialed back response. Like I was like, did I
offend?
Yeah, because even the guys would think liberty. That's pretty good. Yeah, you're challenging it. Like we need to have these discussions. Like,
good.
Yeah, yes, taxation is theft, but we tend to spout that off as like just rhetoric. It's not like
correct. Do they understand what it is? Correct.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, I could put an NPC face over Ben Shapiro and say facts don't care about your feelings,
and it would be accurate.
Yeah, because he knows what that means.
Yeah,
but the rhetoric of that phrase that has gone viral is becoming a bit of a joke and a meme at points.
Correct. Are we going to start doing meme reviews? Is that what's like coming up?
Cutie pie meme reviews.
We can't listen to that Nazi. Don't you know he's a Nazi?
But no, yeah, definitely. No, well, we talk about everything here, Brooke. We're all inclusive,
We're all in, yeah.
We're all inclusive, yeah. We talk about everything. We talk about, haven't talked about everything yet, but
yeah, we'll get to everything probably by the next episode.
But anything else you want to go over, Brooke, or we're good?
No, I think we've covered it. I think we did a good job. I praise us. We will now accept our audience's praise and admiration.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please send all inquiries to my DMs on Twitter. You know,
and you can send all your money to me.
But yeah, thanks everyone for listening to the Shitlord Preachers podcast. Once again, this is our 28th episode, second one being presented through the Think Liberty Network. Once again, I'd like to thank them for having us on board and everything. You can check us out on YouTube at my channel, Amos Joseph, or just type in Amos Joseph or Shitlord Preachers. You'll find either one. Also, check out Think Liberty, think-liberty.com. Also, Think Liberty on Facebook, Twitter, and all those social media platforms. I think they even just added Mastodon. I didn't even know that was a thing. Mastodon, Minds, and Steemit. Yep. Also on our podcasting platforms, Think Liberty on SoundCloud, Spreaker, iTunes. Spotify? Yeah, Spotify. iHeartRadio apparently too. They just dump them on all those platforms. So definitely, yeah, check out all their other podcasts, but specifically, yes, subscribe to my channel here. Follow Brook and myself on Twitter. I am at Amos Joe, Brook at Brook_Potter. Also, check out his channel too, Brook Potter. We're just everywhere, Brooks. Too many.
We'll put all the links below for people who are confused.
Definitely. But thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you next week, Monday, 11 a.m. Central, with a guest.
Come on. Thanks for listening, guys.